Good morning, everybody. We expected a great turnout this morning because of this project, but this is even better than I think we anticipated. So thank all of you for being here. And for those that are able, would you please stand now and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance right here? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here today for the groundbreaking ceremonies of the Veterans Reflection Circle. And before we get too far into the program, I need to introduce several special people here this morning. I first want to start with Brian Mancini's family. And first, mother is here, Jackie Williams. Jackie. His father, John. And his sister, Nicole Mancini. Nicole. They have become kind of the adopted family members of the city of Surprise, and that will last forever. So thank you all for being here. Next, I want to introduce some very close friends of Brian's, actually. And first, I want to introduce Barry Kerseiden. Barry, stand up. Barry is the one who made the city aware of this project. He came forward and said, hey, there's a young man who was part of our community, and I think he's worthy of being honored by your city through the Honor and Exceptional Leader program. And so Barry, that's how Barry and I became friends, and I learned so much from him, but thank you so much, Barry. Next is Bud Gilbert, another great friend of Brian's. Bud is a board member of Honor House, which is a nonprofit that Brian created to assist fellow returning soldiers from war to try to heal themselves, even while dealing with his own struggles. So Bud will be speaking with us a little bit in a few minutes. Also, we have with us Pat Upa, who is the current president of Honor House. Pat. And then next, every member of our city council is here, and I would like you to hold your applause till I get them all introduced. But I will start with Mayor Skip Hall, Council Member Patrick Duffy. Raise your hands too, gang, so they know who you guys are. Everybody knows who the mayor is. Council Member Nancy Hayden. Okay, see, they get unruly already, I tell you. Council Member Chris Judd. Council Member Ken Rimley. Councilmember David Sanders, and our own Vice Mayor Roland Winters. Please join me in a round of applause. I had the honor of being one of the 6 members of the Honoring Exceptional Leader Task Force, but it would be a mistake not to introduce all the members because they really helped establish the vision for this. So first of all was our Planning and Zoning Commission Chair for this city, Matt Keating. I don't know if Matt's here. Matt's here. Thank you. When it comes to the Arts and Cultural Advisory Commission, we actually had 2 members because there was a switch during that time, but I don't want to overlook that. So first there was Susan DeYoung. Susan, I see you sitting back there in the back. Susan. And then later Margaret Liu. I haven't seen Margaret if she's here today. And then our Parks and Recreation Advisory Chair, Wayne Turner, and our own city attorney, Robert Wingo, over here against the wall. And next to him is our Public Works Director, and he was the chair of this particular task force, is Mike Gent, right here. And 2 people they didn't put on here that I needed to recognize real quickly, and then we'll be done with that part, but they played a significant role behind the scenes, done a lot of the work. First of all is Diane Arthur, our Deputy City Manager and Communications Director. Diane, right over here. And our Senior Management Analyst in the Manager's Office, Gloria Bianco, who did a ton of work. Gloria, right here. So I'm going to read some prepared remarks here. This is an emotional day as we gather to honor Sergeant First Class Brian Mancini to break ground for the Veterans Reflection Circle. When the City Council first convened the Honoring Exceptional Leader Task Force to identify ways to honor Brian, I don't think any of us ever expected the process to become what it has been. But in many ways, what transpired is so fitting because Brian was larger than life, captivating and drawing people in just as his project has done for so many generous individuals and organizations. The generosity and support for this project has been unrelenting since council approval in January. The estimated value of this project and the donations are upwards of $200,000. The city would like to recognize and offer its sincere appreciation to the organizations that have partnered to pay tribute to Brian and all veterans through this project. Some of them are listed on this board here to my left. However, there have been so many organizations come forward since then, we've added them to the card that was on all your chairs, so you should take a look at that when you have a moment. And I want to recognize our own team member, Michael Boulet, one of our project engineers, who really is the one that helped bring all these people together. This project would not have become what it was without the involvement of Michael Boulet. So Michael, where are you? He's hiding somewhere from me. There he is, right here. And I know this list is going to grow before we actually unveil the finished product on Veterans Day. So we will go through that again, and we'll be sure to acknowledge those people back on Veterans Day. With that, I would like to take this opportunity to invite our mayor, Skip Hall, to come up and just say a few words. Mayor?
Thank you. Good morning. The Veterans Reflection Circle is a very special project, and it highlights the very best about who we are as a compassionate community. This project pays tribute to Brian Mancini, our veteran neighbor, who spent his time on this earth making a difference, helping others. It is through pure generosity and the desire to honor Brian's sacrifice that the business community, friends, family, and this city have come together to create a space for all veterans and their family to feel supported. Brian called Surprise home. And the City Council believed it was important to honor this exceptional leader by giving the community something to remember him by, and that carries his legacy forward by offering a place where all veterans can go to feel valued and to find healing. We were moved to know that so many others feel the importance of this also. I am truly in awe of the response from the companies who are supporting this project. More than 30 different businesses have stepped up to help create this beautiful space. What a tribute that it is, that is to the impact that Brian had. What an example of the appreciation of our community has for veterans. To the veterans here today, I want to personally offer my deepest gratitude for your service. I hope you never forget the importance of what you gave for your country. Our freedom is secure because of you. And to Brian's family, thank you for being part of this process to find the right way to honor your son, your brother. And thank you for raising a man of courage and integrity whose loving heart and gentle soul impacted this city for good and brought healing to so many. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. When the task force was going through the process of deciding how to best honor Brian, they were approached with an idea from two of our local design companies. Jerry Moore with Logan Simpson and Jesse Westad with Work created a beautiful and thoughtful design and offered it at no cost to the city. Their design is what we're breaking ground on today, and I can't imagine a more fitting tribute to Brian. I would also like to invite Jesse Westad to step up and share a few words with us about the significance of his design. Jesse.
I just want to say, without Brian, we're not all here in this room. And to kind of give you the backstory with Brian is, July 2007, he's on a mission coming back to the base, and the vehicle that he's riding in takes a hit with a roadside bomb, and it hits him with such force, it basically kind of caves in his face, and he's still got his consciousness, and he reaches up and he takes his protect eye gear off, and he can feel what's going on, and he's a combat medic, so he's assessing the situation, understanding what's going on, understanding that basically his teeth have, he's choking on his own blood, choking on his own teeth, and he does a mouse sweep just to keep himself from dying. And that personal courage of a man it's pretty remarkable. So Brian didn't feel sorry for himself. He spent the next 4 years battling it out, going through numerous surgeries, coming back from all this, and he comes back to the Valley of the Sun, and he doesn't want to give up the mission. He doesn't want to give up his life of service. He wants to move the needle forward on how do I keep taking care of my soldiers. The first line of the non-commissioned officer's creed, no one is more professional than I. That was Brian to a T. That's who he was. So what he does, he comes back and he sets up Honor House. And it's this nonprofit that helps veterans transition from the military into the civilian world, and kind of helps them out through those gaps at that time that there was with the VA. So the reason how I got involved, and like Brian, I'm a veteran. I served in the Army, jumping out of airplanes, doing all the fun, cool stuff. And I ended up becoming involved with an organization called the Armory, which helps small businesses that are veteran-owned. And I met this guy, Tom Bishop, who started the Honor House with Brian Mancini. And Tom would always talk about Brian. Said what a great guy Brian was. The same thing that I was trying to do, help veterans transition out of the military. And unfortunately, I never got to meet Brian, before he passed away and kind of succumbed to his injuries. So before I'd ever even met Brian, I was brought on, and we were looking at providing this transitional housing area for Brian. And it seemed like as these months went on, everything always kept bringing me back to Brian. And then all of a sudden, it was crazy with this project. What are the odds that City Surprise will reach out to Logan Simpson, who I work very closely with, and talk to them about this veteran memorial. And Jerry Moore, who's sitting right here, he's like, hey, Jesse, you're a veteran. Why don't you help us out with this veteran memorial? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, who's the guy? And he's like, Brian Mancini. He's like, do you know him? I'm like, man, it's crazy, like how things come full circle, and the areas in your life where, I don't know, it's hard to put a finger on it. And to be sitting here in front of the family and in front of people that knew Brian really well, it was a lot of pressure on my shoulders on just how do we make sure that we do this memorial right. And everybody's like, well, Brian wouldn't want a memorial. He doesn't want it centered on him. He wants to take care of the veterans. So what my task was, and with Logan Simpson, was how do we design this for everybody, and how can we make this a different kind of place? And I didn't want this to be the Applebee's of veteran memorials. I didn't want it the typical, hey, we got our American flag and we've got our little this and we've got this little checkbox that we check. I want some place that veterans and Brian's family and people that have gone through all this stuff. It's a different kind of place that you go to and you can see it grow. And I hope that's what we successfully can do here. And it's heartwarming to find all the people that came together to make this possible. And it warms my heart just to see the amount of people in this room today that have all come together for Brian. And our goal was just, do something different. We wanted a little bit about the design is, as you go into it, the inner circle is kind of about the veteran and the personal struggle that he goes through with the plant selection that we chose. As we move out to the outer circle, that's the community members and the impact that he had on the local community, and then also what they gave back to him. And then for the final phase of that design, as you're kind of looking out to the lake, that's kind of Brian's last walk, where, he's kind of transitioning on to another mission, and, he keeps going on. And I think that's the important thing to remember here, is just that because of Brian's passing, the mission didn't stop. His legacy continues on to this day and will always continue because of him, and then just the people that he's impacted and everybody in this room today. Thanks.
I want to share a little bit more about that story. When our task force was meeting about, again, what's the appropriate way to honor Brian, we kind of selected this site, what we'll go out to in a little bit, and we got to a part in the process where I knew that we would be going to council to seek their approval for the project. And so I had mentioned to Mike Gent that, hey, we need to have some kind of a artist rendition of what this might look like. It'll help the council understand what we're doing. But at that particular time, in my mind and a few others, we were talking about trying to find some, kind of what Jesse's talking about, some small fountain with a plaque or something. And so I just asked Mike, who then gave it to Michael Boulet, who I introduced you to a little while ago. And Michael made connections with Jerry and Jesse. And it's really Jerry and Jesse who have brought this vision to life. I will tell you that I personally was blown away when I saw what they had come up with. I mean, it was so many zip codes outside what I ever thought it would be. It was ridiculous. But thank gosh that's what happened, because so we owe you guys everything for helping us see the way, the right way. So again, thank you, Jesse. After Brian was injured in combat, he founded Honor House, as you've heard, a place where veterans could go to find non-medicinal healing and help with a transition back to civilian life. He was passionate about helping his fellow veterans, and his legacy lives on through his nonprofit organization. Bud Gilbert, who I introduced you to earlier, who's with the Honor House, is here to speak today. So Bud, if you come up and say a few words.
Well, after listening to Jesse and other people, I feel like I have to come on stage after Elvis. So I'm going to modify my speech. I didn't think there's this many people here, so I'm not sure I want to stand up this long. So bear with me for the next hour or so, and we're just kidding, only half an hour. But so I want to thank Mayor Skip, the rest of the council, Mike, and the task force putting this together. Just incredible. Jerry and Jesse, man, I mean, it's like, as I was saying, it's like way above my pay scale how this came together. And friends and family, and some adopted family. I want to thank you all for being here, honoring a great man, my friend and my mentor. I met Brian, well, let me back up. Brian's accomplishments are pretty well known. I mean, we all been hearing about what Brian accomplished, and not only around this valley, but the effect around the country. I hear from people all around this country who have given memorials and plaques, and there's somewhere in, I think, Virginia, there's a fishing pond named after him, and it's just incredible what he did. And you guys will all have the opportunity, especially when this memorial is complete, is to ponder and to reflect on Brian's accomplishments. But I wanted to kind of touch on the non-tangible personal relationship I had with Brian, how this is, in me, this was the essence of Brian. And I first met Brian not long after he founded Honor House, and he started this mission called Operation Healing Journey. And that mission was to put you in a 90-day program and figure out what modalities was going to be helpful to help that transition from military to civilian life. And at that time, I was pretty messed up. I was what Brian liked to call a soup sandwich, and And I don't know how he heard about me, I don't remember the circumstance of how he brought me in. But little did I know how much that program and my relationship with Brian would change my life forever. Brian took me under his wing, and we spent countless hours in his backyard and praying together and crying together and laughing together and yelling at each other and cursing each other, and soup sandwich came up a few times too. But he gave me tools and the support to reclaim my life back. And there were so many things he turned me on to. Brian didn't heal me, but he gave me the flashlight to find the path on the path to healing. Some of the things that I'll never forget from Brian, that's why I had to write them down, because I never forget, so I had to write them down. But it's like my go-to old best friend, what's his face? And so he taught me that I could be strong again, even though I felt like crying. He taught me that I could be grateful even when I felt lost. He taught me that I could still be positive when negativity surrounded me. He taught me that I could still be peaceful even when I was enraged. And this was Brian's and mine big one. We kept repeating this back to each other. He taught me that I could still be hopeful even though I was surrounded by doubt. So he taught me no matter what, that I can't let these injuries, whether they're visible or invisible, to control me any longer. He also, this gets a little tough right now. Because of all that, and for those who know me today and what I'm facing today, I can still hear his voice telling me that I don't give up, that I keep going. His impact and influence has had such a wide influence and rippling effect. And this memorial will speak to so many generations who didn't even know Brian, never met Brian in the future. My son told me one time recently that he was grateful and he respected Brian, which was unusual for me because he never met Brian. And I asked him, "What do you mean?" He says, "Brian gave me my dad back." One of the last conversations I had with Brian before he left us, I asked him, "How do you thank somebody who's given your life back to you, who's given you the tools to carry on, be a productive member of family and society again?" His reply is that one day, bud, you're going to be in a similar position as I am. So just remember what the mission is and to pay it forward. So Brian, look around you. The mission continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Bud. Those remarks probably meant more than anything I've heard other than you and Jesse. Interesting about that, I had never met Brian either. And when this project first came forward and Barry and I began talking, it became incumbent upon me, obviously, to learn a little bit about him. And I guess it's nice that we're in the age that we are, because I Googled him, and holy moly. I could watch videos, but I got to watch Brian talk, and you learn a little bit about what he felt, what he believed, and the thing that really struck me is how sincere he was, and clearly everything or anyone who knew him and talks about him talks about that sincerity, so thank you, Bud. When the design of the Veterans Reflection Circle was donated to the city, it was inspired the idea to see what other companies might want to contribute their talents to making the design a reality. We put out a request for a general contractor, and Hayden Building Corporation responded, agreeing to assist with overall construction, coordination, scheduling, and contracting. And now we have dozens of companies that are contributing their time, talent, and resources. And to speak more about this project is James, I wanted to call him Crane, but he tells me it's Crane, so James Crane with Hayden Building Corporation. James, come on up, please.
Talk about a tough act to follow. Thanks, Bud. several months ago, we were asked to attend a meeting, a city council meeting, which normally when we're asked to attend a city council meeting, it's not usually great news. We were asked to go there and take a look at what's going on. There's something really cool happening here, and you really ought to take a look at it. And we're fortunate enough to do a lot of work with the city of Surprise, so naturally I went and saw a couple of my friends, some other subcontractors, other contractors we work. We were there, and we saw the presentation by Jerry and Jesse of the design, and it was extremely compelling. And we saw the family there, and we saw the council and the mayor, and how you all reacted to it. And I didn't know a thing about it until I got there. But when I got there, Mike said, when you see this, you won't have a dry eye. And I didn't. I never met your son, but he's obviously a special guy. And so very rarely in our business do you have something that you can be totally selfless. And we build a lot of cool stuff, and everything we build means something to so many people. But very rarely do you get an opportunity to be part of something extremely special, and it's so personal to this community that we had to be part of it. And so when the RFP came out, I remember my bosses. Well, I'm a vice president of our company, so I talked to the other vice presidents, and they're just like, okay, what's this project about? And I said, well, it's free. First of all, we're going to be doing this for free. And they were like, it's an interesting concept. But I said it's a chance for us to really do something special, and we have a great team that's close by, and we can do all of these really cool things and work with these great partners. I mean, this is amazing right here. I've really never seen anything quite like it come together like this. Earthscapes also, we have speaking of veterans, our vice president of Earthscapes is part of our company as well, and he's in the audience here today. And we have veterans throughout our company, and I think Mr. Mancini was a special guy. But like Bud said, this is an opportunity for us, at least at Hayden, to honor all of the veterans and all of the service, and in some ways honor our public safety people who help us every day and stand between us and danger. And so for us, this is what I can pledge to you as the family is that we'll bring that design to life. And we will make sure that your son is honored, that all our veterans are honored in exactly the way that the design intended. So I can't wait to get started. I can't wait to see what it looks like, and I can't wait to be at the grand opening. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James. We're about to conclude, but I wanted to share just a real quick story. A week ago today, I returned from England and Europe, 3-week trip. I know many of you in this room have seen the series Band of Brothers, and it was really a trip sponsored by them. It was a war trip. Have been a World War II history buff for many, many years, and said I was going to go to the beaches one day on June the 6th, and I kind of delayed about 20 years, but finally took that bucket list trip this year with my wife, 21 days. It was amazing, 5 countries. But one little part I wanted to share with you, we took a ferry out of Portsmouth, England, which is where they loaded the troops on D-Day, and went across it. We followed the same route and landed in Normandy. And on that particular ship ride, and the next day while we were on the beach, all 5 beaches over 2 days, I had an opportunity to meet about a half dozen veterans who were there on World War II, both British and American. And interestingly enough, despite the rows and rows of medals on their jackets, to a person they all said, and this reminded me so much of Brian, that they were not the heroes. The heroes were the ones buried in the American cemeteries across Europe and in England, in Arlington, and in the thousands of graveyards cemeteries across America. Yet here they were. These were all heroes, but the thing that they talked about the most was their brothers, about the bond that you develop with someone while you're in combat, that will never be a bond like that anywhere else. And I just thought of Brian, and that was the greatest generation. But I do believe Brian was someone who would transcend any generation. I believe Brian could have been there in World War II or the First World War or whatever war it might have been. He would have been there, and he would have been there for his fellow man. And remember, all that he did to build Honor House, to help his fellow veterans, yet he was struggling with severe issues himself, yet he put everyone else above himself. And if you ever saw the Band of Brothers series, one of the gentlemen that was in that show is an amazing gentleman, and he cited in one of the interviews of him a quote from William Shakespeare trying to talk about what it meant to be a brother of that type. And I'm just going to read it for you. Some of you have heard it, and I'm paraphrasing it. But from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. That reminds me of Brian. So thank you all so much for being here today. We are going to exit this door and go out the north doors of the library for our groundbreaking. And again, thank you all so much for coming today. Thank you.
This is a video? There's no instruction, just do whatever the hell you want.